I stared at my phone as it lit up for the 20th time. Katie's name flashed across the screen again, and I could see the notification count climbing. 15 missed calls, 18 voicemails. The phone buzzed with another message. "Dad, please pick up." Then another, "You can't do this." And another, "Dad, don't do this, please." But I didn't pick up. I couldn't. Not yet. My eyes drifted from the phone to the coffee table in front of me, where a pair of plain white socks sat in their plastic packaging. $10. The price sticker was still on them. Next to the socks lay a manila envelope, already sealed and stamped, ready for tomorrow's mail. Inside that envelope were papers that would change everything. Papers that apparently had my daughter calling me in a panic, begging me to stop. It was too late for regrets now. The decision was made. Let me take you back 1 week. Last Sunday, Father's Day. I woke up that morning with a feeling I hadn't had in years. Genuine excitement. Katie had called me 3 days earlier, promising to spend Father's Day with me. "Just us, Dad," she'd said, though her voice had that distracted quality it always had lately, like she was scrolling through her phone while talking to me. Still, she promised, and that was enough to make me happy. I spent Saturday cleaning my little house until everything sparkled. I knew it wasn't much compared to the mansion Katie lived in now with Gregory and his family, but it was paid for with honest work, and I'd raised my daughter here. These walls held memories of birthday parties, homework sessions at the kitchen table, and Katie's tears when her mother died. She was only 5 then. I became both father and mother that day, working 2 jobs to make sure she never felt like she was missing out on anything. Sunday morning, I cooked Katie's favorite breakfast, the pancakes her mother used to make, with blueberries arranged in a smiley face. Silly, maybe, for a 33-year-old woman, but she used to love them. When Katie arrived with Gregory around 10, my heart jumped. She looked beautiful, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly pension. I noticed she was carrying 2 wrapped gifts. One box was huge, wrapped in expensive-looking gold paper with a massive bow. The other was tiny, about the size of my hand, wrapped simply in blue paper. My chest swelled. I thought the small one might be for me something meaningful, something personal. Katie always said the best gifts came in small packages. "Ready to go, Dad?" she asked, barely hugging me before checking her phone. "Go? I thought we were spending the day here. I made your favorite." "Oh, Dad," she laughed. But it wasn't her real laugh. It was the new laugh, the one she'd developed after marrying into the Brooks family, light and dismissive. "We're doing a combined Father's Day at Gregory's parents' house. Didn't I tell you?" She hadn't, but I grabbed my jacket, the nice one I'd owned for 15 years, still in good condition, because I took care of my things and followed them to Gregory's luxury car. The Brooks mansion always made me uncomfortable. Everything was white marble and crystal chandeliers, the kind of place where I was afraid to touch anything. Patricia, Gregory's mother, answered the door in clothes that cost more than my car. "Robert," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "How nice. That jacket is so vintage." The way she said vintage, it clearly meant old and cheap. The afternoon crawled by. Harold, Gregory's father, talked about his golf games and business deals. Patricia mentioned their upcoming trip to Europe, their 3rd this year. I sat in their living room that was bigger than my entire house, drinking coffee from a cup so delicate I feared it would break in my hands. Then came the gift exchange. Katie picked up the large gold box and presented it to Harold with a huge smile. "Happy Father's Day, Harold." Harold opened it, and I watched his face light up. He pulled out a watch, not just any watch, but something that gleamed like it belonged in a jewelry store window. "Katie, is this the Patek Philippe limited edition?" Harold's voice boomed with excitement. "It is. Only 500 made worldwide. I know you've wanted one for your collection. This must have cost 10,000. Katie said proudly. But you're worth it. The room erupted. Patricia gushed. Gregory beamed. Harold immediately put it on, showing it off from every angle, talking about his collection of 40 other watches and how this would be the crown jewel. My throat felt tight, but I was happy for Katie. Happy she had the money to buy generous gifts. I'd worked so hard to give her a good education, to help her succeed so she could have this kind of life. Then Katie turned to me. She picked up the small blue package, the one I'd hoped contained something meaningful. Here, Dad. Happy Father's Day. My hands shook slightly as I unwrapped it. Inside was a plastic package containing one pair of plain white socks, the kind you buy at discount stores in packs of 3 for $10. There was no card, no note, just socks. The room went completely silent. I stared at those socks, and something inside my chest cracked. $10,000 for a man who owned 40 watches. $10 for the father who'd worked 2 jobs to raise her alone. The father who'd sold everything valuable he owned to pay for her dreams. Patricia actually smirked. Gregory looked down at his shoes. Harold coughed awkwardly. You always need socks, right, Dad? Practical. Katie's voice was too bright, too dismissive, like this was perfectly reasonable. I forced my face into a smile. Very practical. Thank you, sweetheart. But inside, something had broken that would never be fixed. The drive home from the Brooks mansion felt longer than usual. Those socks sat in the passenger seat, still in their plastic packaging, and I couldn't stop glancing at them at every red light. $10. The price tag mocked me. I thought about turning around, about going back and asking Katie if this was some kind of joke. Maybe there was a real gift coming later. Maybe she'd forgotten it at home. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was it. This was what I was worth to her now. When I got home, I didn't even take off my jacket. I just sat in my old recliner, the one I'd bought used 20 years ago, because I was saving money for Katie's braces, and stared at the wall. The house felt emptier than usual, quieter. My phone rang. It was my friend Tom. How was Father's Day? He asked. I couldn't answer right away. My throat was too tight. Robert, you there? She gave me socks, Tom. $10 socks. Silence on the other end. Then, meet me at Joe's Coffee tomorrow. 9 o'clock. We need to talk. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the years, all the sacrifices. When Katie was 7 and wanted to go to that expensive private school because her best friend went there, I worked nights doing bookkeeping for small businesses. I'd come home at midnight, sleep 4 hours, then head to my accounting job. For 3 years, I barely saw daylight. When she was 16 and dreamed of studying abroad in France, I sold my father's vintage record collection, the one thing I had left of him. Those records were worth about $8,000. I never told Katie. I just handed her the program fee and said I'd been saving up. College was worse. That fancy university cost $45,000 a year. My salary covered maybe half. I took out loans. I skipped meals. I delayed a necessary surgery on my knee because the copay was $3,000, and Katie needed a new laptop for her classes. I gave her everything. Everything. The next morning, I met Tom at the coffee shop. He was already there, 2 cups on the table. Tom had worked with me at the accounting firm before we both retired. He'd watched Katie grow up, attended her college graduation, even walked her down the aisle with me when she got married. So, Tom said as I sat down, socks. White cotton socks. The cheap kind that lose their elastic after 2 washes. Tom shook his head. And Harold got what? A $10,000 watch. His 41st watch, Tom. The man has 40 other watches. Robert, I need to tell you something. Tom leaned forward, his face serious. I didn't want to say anything before, but after this, you need to know. My stomach tightened. Know what? Last month, Patricia hosted that charity gala at the country club. I was there with my daughter. I overheard Patricia talking to her friends. Tom paused, looking uncomfortable. She called you Gregory's unfortunate father-in-law baggage. Said you were an embarrassment with your old car and small house. The coffee in my mouth turned bitter. That's not the worst part, Tom continued. Katie was standing right there. She heard it, and Robert. She laughed. She agreed with them. I set my cup down carefully, afraid I might throw it otherwise. You're sure? I'm sure, I heard her say. At least Dad's content with his simple life. He doesn't know any better. Tom's voice was angry now. Doesn't know any better? You gave that girl everything. You know better than all of them combined. We sat in silence for a while. Other customers came and went. Life continued around us like nothing had changed. But everything had changed for me. When was the last time she visited you just to visit? Tom asked quietly. Not because she needed something or because it was a holiday. I tried to think. Months ago? Last year? I couldn't remember. When was the last time she asked how you're doing? Really asked? I had no answer. Robert, you're my best friend, so I'm going to be harsh. You've become invisible to her. She sees you as some obligation she has to check off her list. Visit Dad, check. Call Dad once a week, check. Buy Dad cheap gift, check. Tom reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. You deserve better than this. I drove home in a daze. Tom's words echoed in my head. Unfortunate baggage. Doesn't know any better. When had I become someone my daughter was ashamed of? At home, I found myself opening the old filing cabinet in my spare bedroom. I pulled out the folder labeled Important Documents. Inside was my will, written 5 years ago. Everything went to Katie. The house, my savings accounts, my life insurance policy, my investment accounts. I'd been careful with money my whole life, living simply so I could leave her something substantial. I did the math in my head. The house was paid off, worth about $200,000 in today's market. My savings and investments totaled another $150,000. Life insurance would pay out $75,000. Altogether, about $425,000. Not a fortune by Brooks family standards, but it represented every sacrifice, every extra shift, every denied pleasure of my entire working life. All meant for Katie. I pulled out another box from the cabinet. This one was labeled Katie Memories. Inside were things I'd saved over the years. Her drawings from elementary school, all depicting me as best daddy ever in crayon. Handmade cards from after her mother died, when she'd insist on making me both Mother's Day and Father's Day cards. You're my mommy and daddy now, she'd written in her child's handwriting. There were photos of us at her high school graduation, her holding her diploma and kissing my cheek. Her college acceptance letter, which I'd kept because I was so proud. A photo from her wedding day where she'd whispered, I couldn't have done any of this without you, Dad. You're my hero. When had I stopped being her hero? When had I become her embarrassment? I looked at a particular photo, Katie, at age 8, gap-toothed and grinning, sitting on my shoulders at the park. We'd gone there every Sunday, just the two of us. We'd pack peanut butter sandwiches because that's what we could afford, and she'd tell me they were better than restaurant food. That little girl loved me. That little girl thought I hung the moon. The woman who gave me $10 socks while spending $10,000 on a man who barely acknowledged her existence? I didn't know her anymore. I put the memories away and looked at the will again. Then I picked up my phone and searched for my lawyer's number. Mrs. Chen had handled my affairs for 15 years. She knew my situation. She answered on the third ring. Mrs. Chen, it's Robert Mitchell. I need to make an appointment tomorrow, if possible. Of course, Robert. What's this regarding? I looked at the will, at Katie's name listed as sole beneficiary, at the life I'd built for someone who didn't value it. I need to make some changes to my will. Significant changes. I can see you at 10 tomorrow morning. I'll be there. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my small house. The house Katie called simple. The house I'd bought because it had good schools nearby. The house where I'd raised her alone, where every piece of furniture had a story of sacrifice. Tomorrow, things would change. I was done being invisible. I was done being baggage. I was done being sorry for not being wealthy enough for my own daughter. Mrs. Chen's office was exactly as I remembered: organized, professional, comfortable. She'd handled my will when I first wrote it, helped me with the paperwork when I paid off the house, and managed the details when I set up Katie's trust fund for her wedding. She knew my whole financial history. "Robert, it's good to see you." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Though I admit, I'm curious about these changes you mentioned." I sat down and pulled out the folder I'd brought. "I want to remove Katie as my beneficiary. From everything." Mrs. Chen's pen stopped moving. "Everything?" "The house, the savings accounts, the investment portfolio, the life insurance policy, all of it. I want her removed completely." "Robert, that's a significant decision. May I ask what prompted this?" I told her, not with anger or drama, just the facts. The Father's Day gifts, the $10,000 watch versus the $10 socks. What Tom had overheard at the charity gala. The years of sacrifice that led to this moment of clarity. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Where would you like your estate to go instead?" I'd thought about this all night. The house goes to the Single Parents Education Fund. It's a local charity that helps widowed or divorced parents afford their children's education. I want them to sell it and use the money for scholarships. Mrs. Chen made notes. "My savings and investment accounts, about $150,000 total. I want split into 3 scholarships, each one named after my wife, Helen. They'll go to children who lost a parent before age 10 to help with college expenses." "That's beautiful, Robert." "The life insurance money, $75,000, goes to Tom Fisher's grandchildren. They call me Grandpa Bob. They visit me every month, help me with yard work, actually talk to me like I matter. They're good kids." "And for Katie?" Mrs. Chen asked gently. $1,000, with a note that says, "For practical necessities, like socks." Mrs. Chen looked up at me. "You're certain about this?" "There's no cooling off period required legally, but I always recommend my clients take a week to... I've had 33 years to think about what kind of person I was raising. I've had 3 years to watch her become someone I don't recognize. I've had 1 week since Father's Day to realize that I taught her she could treat me this way by always accepting it." "I'm certain." She nodded slowly. "Then let's make it official." It took 2 hours to redo everything. New will, new beneficiary designations, new insurance documents. Mrs. Chen was thorough, making sure everything was legally airtight. When we finished, she slid the papers across her desk. "Sign here, here, and here. I'll need your initials on each page." My hand didn't shake. I signed my name clearly on every page, initialed every change. With each signature, I felt lighter, like I was setting down a weight I'd been carrying for years. "I'll file these today," Mrs. Chen said. "They're effective immediately. I'll send courtesy notifications to all affected parties within 48 hours. "Including Katie?" "Yes. She'll receive a formal letter explaining that she's been removed as beneficiary and where the assets are going instead. It's standard procedure." "Good." As I stood to leave, Mrs. Chen walked me to the door. "Robert, for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. Most parents never find the courage to do this, no matter how badly they're treated." I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. But life continued, and I knew Katie was out there, completely unaware of what I'd done. Part of me wondered what she was doing, if she'd even thought about those socks since Father's Day. I found out later from Gregory. But at that moment, Katie was at the Brooks mansion, having lunch with Patricia. They were planning some charity gala, the kind of event where tickets cost $1,000 and everyone wore designer clothes to prove they cared about helping the poor. Katie's phone sat on the table between them. She'd tried calling me that morning for our weekly obligation call, always on Wednesdays at 10. Always exactly 15 minutes long. Always while she was doing something else. I hadn't answered. For the first time in 3 years, I'd let it go to voicemail. "Dad's not answering," Katie had mentioned to Patricia, not sounding particularly concerned. "Perhaps he's finally found something to do with his time," Patricia replied with that dismissive tone she used whenever I came up in conversation. "Honestly, Katie, I don't know why you bother with the weekly calls. It's not like he has anything interesting to discuss." And Katie, my daughter, the little girl who once made me cards saying I was her hero, had laughed. "I know, right? Last week, he spent 10 minutes talking about his tomato plants." "Tomatoes, Mother Patricia. Like I care about gardening." Those tomato plants were in the garden her mother had started. I tended them every year because it made me feel close to Helen, and because Katie used to love helping me pick them when she was small. Gregory, sitting quietly at the end of the table, had frowned. "Katie, he's your father. Maybe he talks about tomatoes because you don't ask him about anything else." "Oh, don't start, Gregory. You know what I mean." But Gregory didn't let it go this time. "Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, your father worked himself to the bone to give you everything, and you gave him $10 socks, while giving my father, who has literally everything, a $10,000 watch. That was cruel, Katie." The table had gone silent. Patricia's mouth formed a tight line. Katie's face flushed. "It was practical," Katie said defensively. "Dad doesn't care about expensive things. He lives simply. He always says he has everything he needs. He says that because he spent every penny he ever earned on you." Gregory replied quietly. "Maybe he doesn't have expensive tastes because he never got the chance to develop them. He was too busy paying for yours." I learned about this conversation later, but at that moment on Wednesday afternoon, I was at home, blocking Katie's number temporarily. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to not hear her voice, making excuses for treating me like I didn't matter. Instead, I went to volunteer at the Single Parents Education Fund, the charity that would soon own my house. I spent the afternoon playing with children who reminded me of young Katie, bright, loving, unaware of the sacrifices their parents made. A little girl named Amy, whose father had died in a car accident, showed me a drawing she'd made. "That's my mama," she said, pointing to a stick figure. "She works 2 jobs so I can go to good school. She's tired all the time, but she says I'm worth it." I looked at that drawing and saw myself 25 years ago. "Your mama's right," I told Amy. "You are worth it, and someday you'll remember everything she did for you." "I'll never forget," Amy said seriously. "When I grow up, I'm gonna buy her a house and a car and everything she wants." I smiled, but it was bittersweet. I'd once believed Katie would remember too. That evening, I checked my blocked messages. Katie had called twice more, both times sounding annoyed rather than worried. "Dad, this is ridiculous. Call me back." No apology, no self-reflection, just irritation that I'd disrupted her routine. I deleted the messages and went to bed early. On Friday morning, exactly 48 hours after I'd signed the papers, Katie received a formal letter from Mrs. Chen's office. I wasn't there to see her open it, but Tom's daughter was. She worked at the same marketing firm as Katie, and she told Tom what happened. Katie had been at her desk when the courier delivered the certified letter. She'd signed for it, confused, then opened it while on a conference call. Her face went white. Her hands started shaking. The paper slipped from her fingers and scattered across her desk. She'd ended the conference call abruptly and read the letter again. Then she started calling me. The first call came at 9:15 Friday morning. I was drinking coffee Watching birds at the feeder outside my kitchen window, I saw Katie's name light up my phone and didn't answer. The second call came 3 minutes later. Then another. Then another. By noon, she'd called 15 times. I listened to the first few voicemails, and what I heard told me everything I needed to know about where her priorities really were. Dad, what is this? You can't just give away my inheritance. Call me back right now. This is insane. Those charities are strangers. I'm your daughter. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. We need to talk about this before you do something you'll regret. Notice what wasn't in those messages. No apology for the socks. No recognition of how she'd treated me. No acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, she'd done something wrong. Just anger that her inheritance was gone. I deleted them and went back to my coffee. Tom called around 1 o'clock. She knows. I figured. My daughter says Katie's losing it at the office. She's called 3 lawyers already. Let her call 100 lawyers. Mrs. Chen made sure everything is airtight. I'm completely mentally competent, and it's my money to do with as I please. Robert, she's going to show up at your house. I know. That's why I'm coming to stay with you for a few days, if that's okay. My guest room is ready. I packed a bag and drove to Tom's house across town. His place was smaller than the Brooks mansion, but filled with actual warmth. Photos of his grandkids everywhere. Comfortable furniture that people actually sat on. A kitchen that smelled like real cooking instead of catered food. Make yourself at home, Tom said. Stay as long as you need. That evening, Tom's doorbell camera caught Katie arriving at my house. I watched on Tom's phone as she pounded on my door, rang the bell repeatedly, then tried to peer through the windows. Gregory was with her, standing awkwardly by their car. She tried calling again. When I didn't answer, she actually sat down on my porch steps and cried. For a moment, just a moment, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered those socks and hardened my heart. Gregory walked over and said something to her. She shook her head, still on her phone. That's when Gregory pulled out his own phone, recorded something, and texted it to Tom. You need to hear this, Tom said, his face dark with anger. He played the recording. It was Patricia's voice, tinny through a phone speaker, but perfectly clear. Katie, darling, stop panicking. Old people are sentimental and emotional. You know how to handle this. How? Katie's voice, tearful but calculating. Apologize profusely. Cry about your mother that always worked before when you needed something from him. Tell him how much you love him, how sorry you are. Once he forgives you and puts you back in the will, we'll quietly arrange for him to move into assisted living, somewhere nice, but somewhere he can't cause these kinds of problems. My blood ran cold. What if he doesn't change it back? Katie asked. Then we contest it in court. We'll claim diminished capacity, undue influence from those charities. Whatever works. No judge will side against an only daughter, for a father clearly in mental decline, who's giving away hundreds of thousands to strangers. But Dad's not in mental decline. Katie, use your head. A competent person doesn't disinherit their only child over a pair of socks. We'll make it sound like he's senile, confused, possibly being manipulated. We'll win. There was a pause. Then Katie said quietly, and if we don't win, we will. Trust me. I've handled inconvenient relatives before. Gregory's uncle tried to leave money to some environmental charity instead of the family. We had him declared incompetent within 3 months. The money stayed in the family where it belonged. The recording ended. I sat frozen. Tom was watching me carefully, probably worried I might break down. But I didn't feel sad. I felt vindicated. This wasn't a daughter who'd made a thoughtless mistake. This was calculated, planned. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry about losing money. Gregory sent this to you? I asked. Yeah. He's finally had enough of his mother. He wanted you to know what you're dealing with. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Mitchell, this is Gregory. I'm sorry for all of it. You deserved better from all of us, especially Katie. Whatever you decide to do, I support it. I've told Katie she needs to choose real change and counseling, or I'm done. My mother doesn't control my life anymore. At least one person in that family had a conscience. On Saturday, Katie's lawyer sent me a letter. It was full of legal language, but the meaning was clear. They were claiming I wasn't mentally competent to make decisions about my estate. They were going to court to have my recent changes declared invalid. They were calling me senile. I read it twice, then called the local news station. A reporter named Jennifer Walsh answered. Miss Walsh, my name is Robert Mitchell. I have a story about Father's Day, family values, and what we really teach our children. Are you interested? I'm listening. My daughter gave her father-in-law a $10,000 watch for Father's Day. She gave me $10 socks. When I changed my will because of how she's treated me, she's now claiming I'm mentally incompetent to take away her inheritance. I have documentation of everything, and I have a recording of her and her mother-in-law plotting to put me in a nursing home and contest my will. Silence. Then, can you come to the station Monday morning? I'll be there. I hung up and looked at Tom. If she wants to make this public through the courts, I'll show her what real publicity looks like. The interview aired Tuesday evening. Jennifer Walsh was professional and compassionate, letting me tell the story in my own words without sensationalizing it. I brought the socks, still in their packaging with the price tag visible. I showed photos of Katie growing up, pictures of me working both jobs, receipts I'd saved from her expensive school tuition. I explained calmly how I'd sold my father's record collection for her study abroad trip, how I'd delayed knee surgery to buy her a laptop, how I'd eaten ramen for months to help with her car down payment. I showed the math, roughly $400,000 spent on raising her, giving her every advantage, never asking for anything back except love and respect. Then I showed the $10 socks next to a photo of the $10,000 watch. I'm not doing this to punish my daughter, I said, looking directly at the camera. I'm accepting reality. I raised her to be kind and grateful. Somewhere along the way, either I failed or she chose differently. My money will go to people who need it and appreciate it. That's not cruel, that's honest. Jennifer asked about the legal threat. I produced the lawyer's letter claiming I was mentally incompetent. Mr. Mitchell, you seem perfectly lucid to me. How do you respond to these claims? I have one more thing to show you, I said, and nodded to Jennifer. She played the recording Gregory had sent, Patricia's voice, coaching Katie, discussing nursing homes and legal manipulation, casually mentioning how they'd had another relative declared incompetent to control his money. The look on Jennifer's face said it all. The story exploded. By Wednesday morning, it was everywhere: national news, social media, morning talk shows. The hashtag number socks versus watch was trending worldwide. Millions of people shared it, commented on it, related to it. The comments poured in by the thousands. People sharing their own stories of ungrateful children, of parents who sacrificed everything, only to be forgotten. Others praised me for standing up for myself, for showing that parents deserved respect, regardless of their bank accounts. Katie's workplace got flooded with calls and emails. Her carefully maintained social media accounts were bombarded with criticism. People found Patricia's charity organizations and started posting the audio clip, demanding she be removed from leadership positions. Several organizations quickly distanced themselves from the Brooks family. The Brooks family's reputation, the thing Patricia valued most, crumbled in 72 hours. Gregory showed up at Tom's house on Thursday, alone. Tom let him in, watching him carefully. Mr. Mitchell, I owe you an apology, Gregory said, sitting across from me in Tom's living room. Not about the money. You don't owe Katie anything. But I should have protected you from my mother. I should have supported Katie in staying true to who she really was. I was a coward, and you paid the price for it." His honesty surprised me. "What now?" "I've moved out. I told Katie she has a choice: marriage counseling, cutting off my mother's influence completely, and becoming her own person again, or divorce. I mean it this time." "And Katie?" "She's struggling. Not because of the money, I think, because millions of people have held up a mirror, and she hates what she sees." Friday afternoon, Katie came to Tom's house. Tom called me first to ask if I wanted to see her. I almost said no. Then I thought about that little girl who used to make me cards, and I said yes. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red from crying. She was holding something, the box of childhood cards and drawings I'd saved. "Dad," her voice cracked, "I found these at the house. You kept everything." "I did. All those cards about being your hero, about being the best dad ever." Tears streamed down her face. "I meant them. I meant every word." "I know you did." Then, "I don't know when I stopped meaning them, when I stopped seeing you." She sat down, clutching the box. I watched the interview. I read the comments. Thousands of people telling me I'm a terrible person. And Dad, they're right. "Katie." "No, let me finish. I became someone I don't even recognize. I chose Patricia's approval over your love. I traded everything you taught me for status and appearances. I looked at those socks and I thought, that's practical. Dad doesn't care about expensive things. But the truth is, I didn't want to spend money on you because it wouldn't impress anyone. The watch impressed people. It made me look generous in front of the Brooks family." She was really crying now. Not the manipulative tears Patricia had coached her to use, but real, broken sobs. "I can't fix this, can I?" she asked. "I can't undo what I've done." "No," I said honestly. "You can't." "What can I do?" I thought carefully before answering. "Figure out who you are without the Brooks money and influence. Show me through actions, not words. The inheritance is done, that's not changing. But if you want a relationship with me, earn it. Not in weeks or months, in years." "I will," she whispered. "However long it takes." She left quietly, and I felt something unexpected, not forgiveness yet, but hope. Maybe a small piece of my daughter was still in there somewhere. 3 months passed. Katie started therapy. She separated from Gregory temporarily while they both worked on themselves. She took a smaller job away from Patricia's world. And every Tuesday, she showed up at the Single Parents Education Fund where I volunteered. She didn't ask about the will. She just worked alongside me, helping struggling parents, slowly remembering who she used to be.